All right, so in this video, we're going to go over the Module 8 study guide for 2024, which Module 8 is exponential functions and compound interest. All right, so this first question on the study guide asks which function represents exponential decay? Well, decay is when our b is between 0 and 1, or you can look at it as when I am subtracting a rate or something from 1. So if I'm looking at these four options, A, B, C, and D, I am looking for a B term that is between 0 and 1. And so I notice in A, I have 342, so I have a very large A term, but my B term is actually 0.04, which is exponential decay. So this is more than likely my answer here. When I look at option B, I see that I have a linear function. Well, this is not an exponential function because an exponential function has the x for the exponent. So I can cross out the linear function right away. And option C is also a linear function because, again, the exponent or the variable x is not an exponent. And D is showing me exponential growth. So my correct answer is A. Moving on to question 2. Complete the given sentence to classify the function below as representing growth or decay. So growth is when my B term, so the number inside the parentheses, is greater than 1. So I am looking here to determine if it's growth or decay. And 1 plus 0.03 is greater than 1. So the function can be classified as representing exponential growth because 1 plus 0.013 is greater than 1. So that's how I would fill in that answer from the drop-down menus on the test or in my study guide. Okay, question 3. Florida's annual revenue of 5 cities in T years after the year 2020 are given as functions. Which of these functions? Okay, see all of this? We don't care. Let's look at what it's asking. It says R of t, so the function R of t may be used to model the cities that show growth. We're looking for something to show growth by a constant percent rate each year. Then it tells us select 2 that apply. So there will be 2 correct answers, and we are looking for growth, so that is when B is greater than 1. Well, in option A, I have 1 minus a number, okay, 1 minus 0.25, which is showing exponential decay. In answer choice B, please note that I have a negative t. Can I have negative years? Am I going back in time? I am not. Even if I applied the negative exponent rule to this, it would flip the 7/8, which again would show exponential decay. But we can't have negative time, so we should cross that one out immediately. Option C, I have 0.001 in the parentheses as my B term or as my ratio, so that is showing exponential growth. And D also has 1 plus 0.01, again, greater than 1, so that is also showing exponential growth. And then E, inside the parentheses, my B term is 0.98, which is exponential decay. So my correct answers here are C and D. Okay, looking at question number 4, a few students were confused here because they immediately wanted to look at the ratio. But for this particular question, I am going to encourage you to first look at the graph and look at your y-intercept. And our y-intercept here is clearly -6. Well, if I'm looking for a y-intercept of 0, -6, or where my a term is equal to -6, remember that my a term is the number that is listed in front of or without the exponent. So it's in front of the b term, the ratio with the exponent, or the coefficient to the b term with the exponent. So what we're actually looking for is option C. That is the only answer choice here that has the correct y-intercept of -6. If you want to further prove it, we can look at it by looking at a table. We have the point negative 112 right here. And how did I go from negative 112 or from negative 12 to negative 6? Well, I had to multiply by 1/2. So our B was equal to 1/2, which tells us the correct answer here was C. But again, all I really needed to look at for this particular question was the y-intercept. Okay, question number 5. What is the equation of the exponential function corresponding to the following table? Again, the first thing I'm going to do, and what we did in our notes and what we did in our practice, was first look for our y-intercept. And our y-intercept is always when x is equal to 0. So our y-intercept, or our a term, is equal to 1/4. So if our a is equal to 1/4, again, we have the same situation. We only have one answer choice that has the correct a term of 1/4, because the a term for option B is 1, the a term for option C is 2, and the a term for option D is 1/2. So that means our correct answer is A. Again, I can confirm that by continuing to find my ratio, but it's really not necessary for this particular problem because there was only one answer that had the correct y-intercept. All right. So question number 6, Jake borrowed $300 from his dad. Jake's dad is going to charge him a fee for borrowing the money. If Jake does not pay the money back, the amount he owes his dad will increase as shown in the table below. So we know that we have an increasing function. If we have an increasing function, we should be able to eliminate option C right away because this is a decay function written here. Okay, the y-intercept here does not help us because the y-intercepts for all of our equations are the exact same. And that was $300, the amount that Jake borrowed. So now what we have to do is determine what our ratio is. Well, none of our exponential growth or decay functions had a 2, so we can eliminate option A right away. And like I said, we can eliminate option C because it's showing us exponential decay. So to figure out the options between B and D, we're going to take the 337.08 and divide that by 318, and we're going to get 1.06. Well, 1.06 is the same thing as option B, so that is our correct answer. All right, question number 7. So we have not dealt with a negative a term in class or with our notes. So what I encourage you to do is to complete this table of values in order to graph the function to make sure it matches the graph on the test. So we're going to start with plugging in 0 for our x. So we're going to find our y-intercept, which again should always be our a term unless we have something added or subtracted to the function. So our first point is going to be -2. That is our y-intercept. From there, we can follow our ratio, or we can plug in our x values for our x and find our y value so we have an ordered pair. So at -1, our point is -4. So -1, -4. Then I'm going to plug in the -2 and I get -8 for my y. When I plug in 1 for my x, I get -1. And when I plug in 2 for my x, I get -1/2. And here is what my graph should look like. Now, if you're only comfortable graphing with a positive a, you would have graphed a function that looked like this. Oops. Sorry, I was trying to draw on the slide. It would have gone from up here and down. The only thing that the negative did was actually reflect it across the x-axis. So that is another way to think about the negative a term. All right. So going on to question 8, when we see a question like this where it's comparing key parts of this function, we should know that there's going to be one correct answer for every single grouping. So I have two graphs. I have graph A and graph B. Well, graph A is showing exponential decay and graph B is showing exponential growth. So looking at our function, y is equal to 3/4 multiplied by 1/2 to the power of x. The 1/2 is our B term or our ratio. And because that B is equal to 1/2 or between 0 and 1, I should have exponential decay, which is option A. Now I'm going to look at my y-intercept because between C and D, my y-intercept should either be 3/4 or 1. Well, here my A term is equal to 3/4, so that means my y-intercept is 0 and 3/4. Now looking at E and F, I need to determine what is happening with the function. So it says as x increases, the value of the function increases. Well, no, because as my x values are increasing, my y values or the function is decreasing. So that is actually option F. Finally, we're going to be looking at domain and range. So option G says the domain and range are both all real numbers. Well, the domain is all real numbers because x such that x is equal to all real numbers, but our y values, the only possible y values or our range is going to be greater than 0. So make sure you read carefully, and in this situation, you should have 4 correct answers. All right, question number 9. The graph of the certain exponential function, y is equal to m times 1 plus n to the power of x, has these characteristics. So it needs to have a positive y-intercept. So our y-intercept is represented here in this particular equation by the letter m. So our m must be positive. So if I'm looking at my m values, I can cross out d right away. And then it says the graph is increasing. So if the graph is increasing and it's represented, and that has to do with our n value, that means that our n must also be positive. So I have a negative n and another negative n in option B. Option C is the only one that gives me a positive n value, so C is the correct answer. Question number 10, a few students did have questions on, and if you were in my class, I did warn you that this would be confusing to some of you. Okay, it's saying in 2015, Carlos purchases a car whose value y after x years is given by this function. So this is showing us exponential decay, but it's not decreasing at a rate of 85%. It is decreasing, so we can eliminate B and C because those are talking about increases. But this does not mean it's decreasing at a rate of 85%. What it means is it's decreasing at a rate of 15% because the number 15 is what I had to take away from 1 in order to get the 0.85. Okay, question 11 and 12. I have 2 minutes. So here we have a deposit of $1,400 and a 3-year CD at a rate of 3.5%, and it's compounded semi-annually. So our P is equal to 1,400, our T is equal to 3, our rate is 0.035, and our N, because it says semi-annually, is 2. We plug this all into the formula that is given to us on our resource page, and we're going to plug this in using our fast Desmos calculator, and we get 1553.583, which is option A if I'm rounding to the nearest cent. Okay, these other options are assuming I'm betting that you made a mistake in your formula. All right, last question. Your friend Kayla deposits $1,000 into a 1-year CD. So the P is 1,000. The T is 1. The interest rate is 1.93% or 0.0193, and it's compounded quarterly, so the N is equal to 4. I'm going to plug it into this formula, and when I type that into the calculator, I get 1019.44. So that's how much Kayla made. Now I need to calculate how much Kent made in his savings account, which is a simple interest formula. In the simple interest, I'm going to use this formula. I no longer have an exponent. And when I plug that in, I get 1019.3 or 0.30. And then I have to take those two numbers and subtract them in order to get my final answer of 0.14. So only a 14-cent difference. All right, that's your Module 8 study guide. Good luck on your test tomorrow.